Have you ever felt like no matter how much you try to settle, there's something in you that refuses to accept an average life? It's not ego. It's not entitlement. It's the memory of a promise. Because long before you could speak your dreams, you already made a silent vow with something greater, a vow to rise, to become, to not just chase success, but to embody it. This is why you feel uncomfortable when you're out of alignment. Why mediocrity makes you anxious. Why stagnation feels like suffocation. Because you didn't come here to survive. You came here to fulfill an invisible contract, one that was signed in the space between your soul's calling and your human potential. One that demands your full presence, not just your performance. And here's the secret most people never realize. Success is not just an external result. It's a relationship. It's a mirror that reflects your level of clarity, conviction, and consistency. It doesn't respond to your wishes. It responds to your alignment. And when you break your part of the contract, through fear, doubt, delay, life doesn't punish you. It simply pauses until you remember what you agreed to become. That heaviness you feel when you're not showing up for your vision, it's not depression, it's not laziness, it's a soul knocking on the door of your integrity, because your spirit knows. It remembers what you were born to build. And the ache you feel isn't because you're behind, it's because you're out of sync with the path you promised to walk. That promise wasn't made to the world. It was made to you, to your highest self, to the version of you that exists beyond excuses, past traumas, and present distractions. And every time you procrastinate, every time you lower your standards to fit someone else's comfort, every time you deny your gift just to be accepted, you're not just disappointing yourself, you're delaying a divine contract, a soul assignment, a sacred mission that success agreed to fulfill, but only if you do your part. You were never meant to chase success with desperation. You were meant to move with certainty, because the agreement was already made in faith. And faith doesn't need evidence, it needs obedience. Now, before we go further, ask yourself in silence, am I living in agreement with the success I prayed for? Because the truth is, you can't manifest what you constantly betray. Napoleon Hill didn't teach success as a formula. He taught it as a frequency, a state of inner vibration that aligns thought, belief, and behavior with universal law. And he made one thing clear. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. But only if you act in harmony with that belief. What most people miss is this: that harmony is not just mental, it's spiritual. It's a sacred alignment. Success in its highest form is not about acquisition, it's about agreement. Agreement between your inner vision and your outer habits, between your declared desire and your daily disciplines. And when there's a breach in that agreement, when you say you want abundance but walk in scarcity, when you pray for breakthroughs but think in limitations, when you visualize prosperity but sabotage your own path, that's not just a mental block, that's a spiritual betrayal. Napoleon Hill called it drifting, a dangerous state where the individual loses connection with purpose, loses control of their mind, and becomes reactive to circumstance instead of directive by vision. And drifting, my friend, is not neutral. It's a violation of the contract you signed. The one that said you would lead your thoughts, not follow your fears. You were born with a mind, not to entertain doubt, but to command it. You were gifted with imagination, not to escape reality, but to reshape it. And you were entrusted with desire, not to fantasize, but to manifest. You don't renew your contract with success once a year. You renew it every morning, with your thoughts, with your focus, with your actions, with the way you speak to yourself before anyone else hears your voice. Every time you discipline your mind instead of letting it wander, you're signing the agreement again. Every time you get up early to move in the direction of your calling, even when no one's watching, you are honoring the invisible terms. Because success doesn't arrive like a guest. It arrives like a witness to your integrity when it's not convenient, to your resilience when it's not easy, to your belief when there's no evidence. And here's what most never understand. Success isn't asking for perfection, it's asking for participation, for presence, for congruence between what you say and what you do. You can't manifest wealth with a mind addicted to poverty. You can't unlock favor while refusing responsibility. You can't attract abundance while broadcasting fear. The contract doesn't respond to words. It responds to frequency. And your frequency is the byproduct of your repeated focus. So if you're still wondering why your results aren't matching your vision, ask yourself this. Am I behaving like someone who already trusts the promise I made? Because until your behavior matches your belief, success will keep waiting at the threshold, not to punish you, but to protect the power of the contract. Every contract has a clause that most people skip. In the contract you made with success, that clause is called the delay. And it's not a punishment, it's a preparation. This is the space between vision and validation, between planting and harvest, between declaration and demonstration. It's the season when nothing seems to move, yet everything inside you is being tested. Napoleon Hill called this the testing period, when the universe checks to see if your faith is just emotion or endurance, if your dream is just a performance or a decision. This is where most people quit. They break the contract not by walking away, but by shrinking their vision, doubting their path, negotiating with fear. But let me remind you, every storm that delays you is also training you. Every rejection that humbles you is also shaping you. Every pause in progress is a test of your alignment. The silence isn't abandonment. It's the echo of your own commitment. Success is not only watching your results, it's watching your response when results don't come on your timeline. In this sacred silence, you're not being punished, you're being observed. There's a reason success doesn't come instantly, because if it did, it would collapse on the version of you that isn't ready to hold it. It would empower an identity that's not rooted in truth, just in desire. So the delay comes not to discourage you, but to upgrade you. To make sure that what you're building on the outside doesn't outgrow who you are on the inside. This is why you feel like you're being stripped, like you're losing things, like you're not being seen, because the invisible contract doesn't pay in applause. It pays in alignment. And alignment can feel like loss, before it becomes liberation. So if people are walking away, if results are stalling, if doubt is louder than ever, don't ask, what's wrong with me? Ask, what part of me is being refined so I don't sabotage what's coming? The delay is sacred, because the delay is when you become the container for the promise. A small mind can't hold big favor. An unhealed heart can't sustain divine wealth. An inconsistent soul can't carry lasting impact. This part, the hidden, raw, exposed part, is the final test before fulfillment. It's the clause that decides, will you become the person your success requires? Because if the answer is yes, then the delay was never a rejection, it was your initiation. Most people think faith is a warm emotion. They imagine it as peace, comfort, or a sense of calm in chaos. But real faith, the kind that aligns you with success, it's not soft. It's fierce. It confronts every part of you that wants to shrink back. Because at some point your faith has to leave your prayers and enter your posture. You have to walk like the door is already open. You have to speak like the answer is already yes. You have to think like you're already chosen, because you are. God does not move in the presence of comfort. He moves in the presence of obedience. And obedience isn't passive. It's aggressive trust. It's saying yes with your actions when your eyes see no. It's showing up when you're tired, investing when you're afraid, creating when you're unseen. That's faith-aligned action. Napoleon Hill wrote, "Faith is the starting point of all accumulation of riches. But it only works when it's married to motion. You can meditate all day. You can recite every affirmation. You can visualize until your mind is glowing. But if you don't take the step that scares you, you've agreed with the vision, but refused the vow. Because faith without movement is just a mood. Faith with action. That's how mountains move. There is a kind of action that is louder than words, and it speaks directly to the divine. It's the moment when your discipline becomes worship, when you don't act for the outcome. You act because the calling won't let you stay still. This is when heaven watches closely, because you're not just working, you're responding. You're not just chasing success. You're walking in the direction it's already being prepared. And that kind of movement, quiet, aligned, unshakable, is what unlocks doors that effort alone could never touch. Napoleon Hill said, "The world has the habit of making room for the man whose words and actions show that he knows where he is going." That room is not just made in boardrooms or stages. It's made in hearts. It's made in timelines. It's made in dimensions your eyes have not seen, but your faith has already entered. Every aligned action you take is a seed, and while some seeds sprout in public, the most powerful ones crack open in silence, deep in the unseen soil of destiny. So yes, be still when you're told to be still. But when the whisper comes, when that nudge arrives, move. Even if it doesn't make sense. Especially when it doesn't make sense. Because when you move in faith, the atmosphere around you has no choice but to adjust. Heaven recalibrates. Time folds in your favor, and the contract you made, the one success has been waiting to honor, begins to activate. Not just because you believed, but because you behaved like the promise was already yours. You imagined success one way, shining, celebrated, seen. But when it finally begins to arrive, it often wears a disguise. It shows up as more responsibility, more pressure, more silence from the people you thought would cheer for you. Sometimes even more isolation, because the reward doesn't always look like gold. Sometimes it looks like fire. But it's the kind of fire that forges you. Why? Because God is not just answering your prayers. He's answering your becoming. Napoleon Hill wrote, "Strength and growth come only through continuous effort and struggle." That means the very proof that you're receiving the manifestation might feel like resistance. You'll wonder, why does it feel harder now that I said yes to my purpose? Because the path to reward is not paved with applause, but with refinement. You don't just walk into your promise, you grow into it. And when you step into something truly aligned, the universe doesn't just hand it over. It stretches you to carry it with integrity. This is why many walk away. They think the delay is denial. They think the silence is punishment. They think the pressure is a sign to quit. But it's none of those. It's confirmation. You're becoming the one who can hold what you were born for, without it breaking you. You thought you were chasing success, but success was always waiting for you to become trustworthy. Not talented, not lucky, trustworthy. Because there is a kind of wealth that does not arrive through hustle or hacks. It arrives through transformation. It arrives when your soul becomes the kind of soil where divine favor can take root. And when that moment comes, when the invisible contract is activated, you won't need to fight for visibility. You'll begin to feel it. Doors open with ease. Strangers offer favor. Ideas flow without effort. People say, "I don't know why, but I trust you." That is the signature of a spiritual transaction. Napoleon Hill didn't write just for businessmen. He wrote for builders of inner empires. Those who dare to believe that the greatest riches are those you attract by who you've become, not just what you do. This is the wealth that can't be taxed. The kind that outlives you. The kind that leaves legacy in the air when you walk into a room. It's not about the mansion, it's about the mindset. It's not about the millions, it's about the mission. And that is why your path took time. That is why it felt hidden. Because heaven does not promote those who perform, but those who prepare. And now, you are prepared. If you've made it this far, you are not simply watching a video. You are remembering a vow. Somewhere in your soul, you agreed to this journey. You agreed to be stretched, to be tested, to be misunderstood. So you could become someone who moves in silence but walks in unshakable authority. Success is not chasing you. It's matching your frequency. It doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to decision. So now the question is not, when will it happen? The real question is, Will I keep my contract active, even when no one sees? If your answer is yes, then the shift has already begun. You don't need more proof. You need more presence. The seed is already planted. Now walk, as if it's already done. Let the world doubt. Let the noise continue. Let the delay stretch. But don't let go of the promise. Because every step you take in silence is a step being recorded in the invisible ledger of destiny. And when the time comes, when the curtain lifts, you won't need to introduce yourself. The fruit will speak. And if these words touched something deep in you, write this in the comments so heaven sees. I honor the contract. I walk in silence. I trust the reward. Because you are not becoming someone new. You are returning to who you were before the world told you to doubt.